Joining me is Todd Friel. He's the host of Wretched TV. His website is www.wretched.tv. Todd, you recently wrote, "The election of 2012 may go down in history as the official date that America became a post-Christian nation. A new, non-Christian worldview determined this election." Talk about that. Why is the U.S. now a post-Christian nation?
Well, it should have been the economy, stupid, but it wasn't. This should have been a landslide considering our economy.
A landslide
Clearly,
for who?
It should have been, I think, a conservative/Republican landslide victory. Whenever there's a rotten economy, typically the incumbent is very vulnerable. A Jimmy Carter-like incumbent won the election rather handily. So there's got to be something else going on in our culture.
Now, specifically, why was the economy bad? Quantify how the economy was bad for our audience.
Well, I think that you can take a look at the unemployment rate. You can take a look at the national debt. I think you can take a look at our gross domestic product. You can take a look at our country, even from an international political standpoint, the opinion and attitude of other countries toward America, what is going on in the Middle East.
All right, so let's stop there, because that's just so much stuff. So let's look at that. In all polls, opinion of the U.S. in other countries was significantly higher than during the 8 years of George W. Bush. GDP was growing, albeit slowly. Jobs were recovering, millions of jobs created. So specifically, which aspects of that should have led to a Romney victory?
Well, sure, we added some jobs, but we weren't even keeping up with college graduates. So while there was positive job growth, it wasn't enough to keep up with the number of human beings that are even entering into the workforce.
Okay.
Do we need to take a look at Benghazi? Do we need to see what's happening in Egypt? I don't know what images we need to see to determine things aren't looking real good over there.
And what about Benghazi had to do with President Obama?
Well, I think that it's underneath his watch.
Okay, but specifically, what could he have done differently?
Pardon me?
What could he have done differently to prevent that attack?
Well, I think that there's lots of things that could be done that we could talk about after the fact.
Yeah.
But when we see a strong America, we see fewer embassy attacks.
Now, this happened at a consulate, so what does that have to do with anything?
What does it have to do with anything? Did 4 people die or not?
Yes. But you talked about embassies.
That's what it has to do with it.
But this happened at a consulate. You talked about embassies. How are the two related?
All right. A consulate.
Okay, all right. So let's get on then. So now we are a post-Christian nation. Now what happens?
Now what happens is things start to look different. Now you might think that they look good, but they definitely look different. We can see a nation with pregnancies, single mothers. I think we can see AIDS is a bit of a problem. I think we can see that families are disintegrating. I think morality is portrayed on TV screens, movie screens. It is certainly a different America than Leave It to Beaver. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Okay. Now, and so what is bad about it?
Something has changed. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm sorry?
So something has changed. Wouldn't you agree?
Certainly. I mean, for the first time, we saw marriage equality voted on by the popular vote in 3 states.
Sure. If you consider that to be
victory.
A good thing, that is a change, however, correct?
I'm sorry?
That if you consider that to be a good thing, which I presume you do, is that correct, David?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so you think that's a good thing? That is a radical change in America, correct?
I don't know that it's radical. We've seen a steady progression, now 9 states plus D.C. legalizing
It's certainly
gay marriage.
different than before the election. So with that in mind, something has changed. I'm a Christian. I'm actually saying that I believe that it's the church's fault that the nation is changing so radically, and I don't think it's in a good way. I think it's a bad way. I'm actually, while you and I apparently disagree on morality issues, I actually want to take the blame for the change because I don't think the church is doing a good job of getting our true message out.
I agree. I mean, certainly the extreme conservative views of many religious organizations have turned voters off drastically. Less people consider themselves religious than ever before. Less people regularly go to church than ever before. I would agree. I would blame religion for a lot of what's going on. Do you think, though, that Christians are oppressed in some way in this country?
Well, I don't want to use the term oppressed or they're persecuted. I don't think that is justice for the type of true persecution that Christians, more than any other religion, are receiving overseas due to the hands of communism or Islam. But do we get treated a little bit differently in this country? I think the answer to that question is more and more, yes. Am I whimpering and sucking my thumb in a corner? No. But
so explain that. In what way are Christians being treated in a way that you don't like?
Well, let's just, how's about Chick-fil-A for a 2012 recap? One man who owns a privately held industry says that he believes marriage should be between a man and a woman. I think you saw a rather visceral response to that man, who happens to be a Christian.
Okay, but so people certainly...
Is that fair?
I'm sorry?
Is that a fair example of many examples that exist these days in Christianity?
I don't really know that it's about Christianity. It's about just basic rights. You know, marriage equality is coming. It's going to be a nationwide thing eventually. He's going to be on the wrong side of history, regardless of what his religious texts tell him. Some people decided, you know what, I like that. I'm going to now go out of my way to go to Chick-fil-A. And some people said, I don't like that. Now I won't go to Chick-fil-A.
David, your question was, are Christians getting treated differently? And the answer to that is yes. And it's interesting to me. It sounds like you're a progressive kind of fellow. The things that progressives used to bellyache about seems to be the very thing that they're doing to us, imposing values on another group of people. And right now, the progressives are imposing their values on Christians more than ever before, and they're not doing it in a very pleasant sort of way.
But how can we say that?
I think the type of language that is used is very aggressive.
I mean, Todd, how can we say, so for example, like when voters in 3 states voted to affirm marriage equality, that's people casting a ballot. No one's imposing views. It's just democracy, isn't it?
Okay, then why did you try to get a change?
What was that? I'm sorry. We're having a connection issue.
Then why did you try to make a change? If you don't believe that laws impose any sort of morality, which quite honestly is a ridiculous statement, then why did you fight for a change? Then why didn't you just coexist?
Well, that's the thing, because people were actually being discriminated against.
Murder is morality. Rape is morality. Child abuse is morality. Somebody is going to be imposing the morality on somebody. The question is who. And predominantly right now, I think the progressives are indeed winning, because the church right now is not behaving the way that the church should be behaving, and we're not getting our message out. David, let me take this chance to say, I think that we've done a bad job of dealing with the gay issue.
I agree.
We have sounded like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh too much, and we should be sounding like Christians offering a message of forgiveness, not just you people are wrecking the country.
So you believe gay people need to be forgiven because it's a sin? Is that what I'm reading into?
You don't have to read that subtly. That's exactly what the Bible teaches. Yes, sir. Okay.
And then how about like marijuana legalization, something we also saw voted on in a number of states? What would be the true Christian thing on that?
Well, it's a bit of a complex issue in that the Bible doesn't use the word marijuana. So when we look for the Bible to give us a direct teaching, we don't have one. So we need to take a lot of different looks at the Bible to see what it says. And basically, overall, the Bible teaches that a Christian, an individual, should be in control of his body. His mind should be sharp, sober-minded. I don't think that marijuana contributes to that. Therefore, I would say thumbs down on marijuana. And historically, that has been the church's position on cannabis.
Okay, and then how about on pornography?
How's about pornography? Do you think pornography is a good thing, David?
I think it's one of these things that is not to be regulated and made illegal. If
Do you think it's a good thing?
That sounds like a moral judgment. I think there's nothing wrong with pornography.
You're not making moral judgments, David? Seriously?
I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay, so you think that it is good that women are portrayed in that fashion?
No, what I think is not the business of the government is to outlaw pornography.
That get looked at by complete strangers. You think that's good?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You think that women being treated like sex objects, that is morally neutral?
Listen, if you're asking me would I want a potential daughter of mine to be in porn, that's a very different question than whether I think that the government should be regulating that pornography. If people are consenting to be in a movie, that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. In fact, that's kind of really the conservative Republican idea, isn't it? The free market should dictate. I thought that was what you guys were all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's not be strawmanning with our arguments. We dictate lots of things all the time.
I know.
Right. David, are those women in pornography, are they not somebody else's daughter?
Yes, they are.
Don't you care about those girls?
I do, but it's not my business what they do, and I don't think it's the government's business, much the same way that when we're talking...
So you don't care about anything?
I'm sorry, Todd?
So you don't care about anybody and their behavior? Are you opposed to rape?
Of course.
Why?
Because somebody isn't consenting.
Ah, so it's consent that is the issue.
Consent's a big issue, certainly. So if there's a girl who's in pornography
that was brought there through the sex trade, are you opposed to that?
I'm opposed to the sex trade, yes.
Okay, so it's just consent that's the issue. There's nothing moral about anything, in your opinion? It's just consent?
Todd, I mean, if we're talking about straw man arguments and reduction to the absurd, this is kind of a textbook case, isn't it?
I don't think so, but apparently you do.
Todd Friel is the host of Wretched TV. I want you to check out his website, wretchedtv.com. There is certainly a lot of material there for people to analyze and go over. All the information is there. Todd, although we didn't agree on much, I do appreciate the conversation very much.
I don't think we agreed on everything, but I don't hate you, David.
All right, very good. Thank you, Todd.